So, Christian Bleakley, Firstcom Europe is the company. I've been the CEO for 7 very happy years. That's not true. So yeah, I mean, look, I've worked in Bolton now since 1993, which just feels like an absolute lifetime ago. And I've built up 2 or 3 very successful telecom businesses, exited those. Firstcom was kind of going to be part of my retirement plan. So I sold Telesys into Firstcom 2019, end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And I thought that would be the end for me. I would be phased out over a couple of years. Didn't quite go to plan. The business wasn't as financially sound as I thought it would be. They didn't quite have the same morals of how you look after customers, staff and suppliers. So very foolishly, I decided to get a £25 million loan and take the company back. And that was a really interesting conversation with my wife over dinner. And during that time, we've rebuilt the business. We've focused it more in Bolton. So it was very much a European business. It had a European flair, European management team. Head office was in Denmark. And we've moved that into the place I now call home, which is Lostock. We employ close to 120 people in the UK. We still have the German operation as well. And obviously building the business, we've been wholly reliant on what Bolton has got to offer in terms of talent, and that's been quite difficult. One of the reasons we moved out of the town centre to here is to give us more access to talent. You've obviously got the train track next to you, you've got the big motorway network, you've got Middlebrook, which should on paper make it a lot easier to hire the right people. Yeah, Bolton Lads and Girls Club. It's a really interesting story. So I'm 52 now, and I've been with my wife since we were 15. We were never having children. I just didn't, it wasn't kind of on the agenda. We both agreed with that. And then towards the end of 2007, 2008, my mind started to change, and I saw a presentation with Bolton Lads and Girls Club. And I don't know if you've seen the film Sliding Doors, but this was my sliding doors moment. I'd done some work with you guys at the time, and I was helping with CVs, interview techniques, and I really got on with some of the really naughty kids. And I was asked if I'd ever thought of being a mentor, and I said no, I hadn't. And I went through your mentoring program. This is like 2007, I think it was. It was before I had children anyway. And I absolutely loved it. It broke my heart to see and hear some of the stories. And you go through the training, and you're told you shouldn't get emotionally attached, and you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. But we're humans. And the guy that sticks out the most, Josh, I'll not give his last name away because he was a bit naughty. He was a really bad lad. And I'm very sporty, and I was told that I might be a good role model because I'd boxed, I'd played professional rugby league, I had a business, I drove a nice car, and you would give these kids like aspirations to work towards. So I came over to the club, and Josh was the first kid I had. And I was told the only sport he was interested in was table tennis. And I was pretty good at table tennis. I like to think I'm good at most sports. So I said, yeah, I'll play him, I'll break the ice, because he didn't want to communicate. He was sat there with his head down, arms folded, not interested in anything I had to say. And I said, do you want to play table tennis? And he said, yeah. And I said, I'm pretty good. And I said, but I've heard you're really good. I said, so let's have a game. So I played him, and it's first to 21. And he beat me 21-18. And I remember thinking, well, he's good, because he's beat me, but he's not that good. So I said this to him, and he said, well, I've just played with my left hand, do you want me to play with my right? And I thought, is he kidding? So I said, yeah, okay, let's play again then. And he beat me 21-0. And he was absolutely amazing. I mean, like top notch. So that was the connection. We had this then connection. And I asked him about all the things that he wanted to do in life, and he'd never been to a snooker hall. So I went and took him for a proper game of snooker. He beat me at that as well. He lied about never being to a snooker hall. The guys behind the bar knew him, and he was, instead of going to school, he was going to the snooker club. He liked fishing, so I didn't particularly like fishing, so I took up fishing with him. And my biggest achievement was getting him, this is a bit emotional, is getting in contact with his dad. He had quite an abusive relationship with his stepfather. His stepfather wasn't abusing him at all, but it was a very abusive relationship, back and forth. They were both very vocal to each other and said some terrible things. And the mum didn't know where to go, because she had obviously her priorities were her other children and her husband. And Josh he didn't have the same dad as the other kids. And I asked his mum, would it be okay for me to try and find his dad? I've got a lot of friends who are in the police force, so I knew kind of where I needed to start. And it turns out he was a school caretaker at a school in Wythenshawe. And I went to see him, and I told him about Josh. And he broke his heart. He broke his heart, and I gave him the biggest hug I've ever given anyone. And I said, I think I can arrange for you to meet. And his dad was massively into cars, and he had a passion for cars, and I had a nice car at the time. And I picked him up and I took him, and we met Josh, and I got him back talking. And then eventually, when Josh left school, he worked in a body shop, so he repairs cars now, and he has such a good life compared to, and he's still in touch. He still messages me now and again, and it made me think differently about children and the way the dad broke down, and I thought, I've got to change my outlook on life. So I went home and I said to my wife, I think we should change tact and maybe have children. And she said, okay, let's give it a go. And 10 months later, we had Daniel, my first son. And then I went on to have George. So I never mentored after that. I did a couple of short stints after Josh of really bad kids who were very troublesome, and some were quite violent, because I think I had a good way of connecting with them, but I never did a permanent again. But I did other things, like I raised funds, I did some fire walks and stuff like that. I did some other great things for you. And one of the things that I was keen to do is when I sold Telesys, is continue the Patron with Firstcom. And I think the problem is when you do set up a new business, you've got loads of other things to worry about. You know, being a patron is might sometimes be seen as a box ticking exercise. You appear to do the right thing by the community, but there's so many other things that you do, and I would urge anyone to just go to one of the talks where you get the young people to stand up and talk about their journey, and then not have a desire to help Bolton Lads and Girls Club. And I think we've developed as a business, culture to me is everything. But I'm still very much, I'm very mindful of what goes on at Bolton Lads and Girls Club. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the difference that you guys make. And I think our journey, and just going back to the work side for a second, I wouldn't even like to guess how many people I've employed from the Bolton area, but it will be more than 1,000 over the years. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for 33 years. Where there's a gap is in the employment. And I think where we all need to stand up and be counted is, we all complain that we can't recruit, and we try and recruit from farther afield. But if we actually look in our own catchment area, and we talk to the schools and the colleges and people like Bolton Lads and Girls Club, that can really help our businesses grow, because you're employing people that Bolton means something to them. And when you've done what we've done for the community, and we're helping out with things like Rivington and trying to get Rivington tidied up, and we've done some stuff with Bolton Wanderers in the community, Bolton Hospice, obviously you guys as well. What we're trying to do is promote through Emerson's. I've got a meeting with Emerson's tomorrow, and Bolton Council, is bring all these businesses together. And I don't think anyone does it as good as you guys do. If you look at the paddle tournament, the beer festival, the patrons dinner, but everyone's got to work a bit harder. It's fine to go, yeah, I'll do that, but mean it every day. Have it part of your objective for your business, and I think that's where we can all improve.